interviewing some different expert guests just to bring you guys some different variety. As you recall from our recent episodes, we've been talking of the importance of sleep. Obviously, it's important to our overall health. And then with us, with runners, we need to make sure that we're getting proper health so we can keep running and stay injury resilient. All this stuff ties together. Well, today we have a special guest. He's a friend of Patty and ours from another kind of life, so to speak, but he's such a good guy and he's an expert. He's from the UK and he's been his business has just exploded in the last, I don't know, a couple of years here. And he's going to tell you all about it, but it really ties directly into sleep, your brain health, all of these tie together. And obviously, again, it was one of the reasons we love to run because it helps us clear our head and reduce some of that anxiety and all the things that come with that. But today we have a special guest. I'm going to introduce him here. His name is Ollie Matthews from just outside of Manchester, but I will let you introduce yourself, Ollie. But thank you so much for joining us today. And we really appreciate it. We're looking forward to this conversation because I think our viewers and guests of our group and live streamers who are watching this are going to get a lot of value out of this.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I'm not just outside of Manchester. I'm like 2 hours away from London in a place called Norwich, but I'm a Man United fan.
So, okay, that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Stadium up there in the background.
That's what it was. You're a Man U fan, so I do appreciate that because I do follow the Premier League, by the way. So,
oh, cool.
Because you have a lot of running going on now, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they run a good 10, 12K. Like midfielders, they run a lot.
Every game, exactly. And so they have to be in peak shape. Right now, obviously, we are the weekend warriors, so to speak. We are the weekend runners. We train for, the 10Ks, the halves, and the marathons, the fulls. And so that's why we just love this. But I think you guys are really going to enjoy this because, again, Ollie and I, he's been doing some really good stuff. I follow him online, and I've just learned so much just from following his feeds. And so that's why I reached out and said, Ollie, you got to be out as a guest. And he graciously agreed to do this. So before we get started here, Ollie, tell us a little bit about, yourself, your background, and then your program and just the stuff that you've been working on with your clients.
Yeah, I'm a functional medicine doctor, nutritionist, and health coach. And primarily I work with the people that would be the weekend warriors. Like I have a background in professional endurance athletes, coming from a physique background myself of competing in bodybuilding and then strength sports and then combining the two with endurance. So I was the weekend warrior as well and still am when it comes to endurance. But it started a long time ago when I went through a period of seeing what stress does on the body and actually lost my dad when I was 15 years old from stress. And basically he had migraines and he was 47 years old, appeared healthy, just pushing himself in his job. And ended up that he passed away by having a stroke. Went into hospital with a migraine on the Monday, had a stroke on the Wednesday. We had to turn off his life support machine on the Saturday. And it wasn't then that I realized that would kind of push me into the functional medicine world and specializing in recovery, burnout, helping people sleep and brain health, all these different things. But I went into the bodybuilding world. Then I went into the endurance world, had someone that was in the Tour de France, worked with the Ultraman world champion, sorry, not Ultimate Man world champion, Ultraman world champion. So like the extreme endurance, marathon runners, Ironman athletes, like professionals that were going from A to B as fast as possible, which most of us want to do. But so many people neglect their health as a result. And then afterwards they get sick. Yep. How many people have run a marathon and then the week after you get this really bad cold or you get flu and your immune system is like fighting so hard to stay strong. And then suddenly it thinks, don't need to do that anymore, because I'm now recovering and I've done the hard work. So I then went into working with entrepreneurs and some celebrities to push them with their health, and worked with a guy who was manager for a really, really high, well-known pop star. And he was just burnt out from touring with her, helping her with becoming the superstar that she is today, and really, really pushed. And I was standing in his kitchen in Nashville doing a musician's health course. And he said, look, you've given my wife what she married 10 years ago, giving it back to her. And his 15-year-old daughter was their 13-year-old son. And it gives me goosebumps now to realize that I couldn't help my dad, but I can help so many people try and help them with their health and stop 15-year-olds losing their parents as much as possible. And that's when I really dived into functional medicine. I've had migraines in the past myself. I've suffered with brain fog. I've got ADHD. I've had symptoms of autism and come up on the autism spectrum and diagnosed with that. And how we can manage that with good nutrition, and then sleep issues myself. I've had them all over the years, and it's making sure that we know how to sleep through the night, because one of the most common things that people come to me with, and they think it's normal, is they wake up through the night to go to the toilet. And just because something is common does not make it normal.
It's a great point. That's a great point, because Patty and I talk about that. Yeah, just just because you're experiencing something doesn't mean it's normal. That's not the case. It should be the case. It's really not normal most times. Wow, that is so awesome. But there's just so much we can talk about, and obviously we want to respect time for our viewers and for yourself as well. But can you explain the connection between sleep and brain health and why they're important to our overall well-being? It seems common sense, but how do you look at that?
We look at what happens during sleep, and I always talk about the body. If we think of a big airport like Heathrow Airport, JFK, LAX, that planes are literally coming and going every 2 minutes, every minute as such during the day. So there's so much activity, and that's the same with our body. Now, in the evening, activity slows down, and overnight, there's all these repairs going on. There's maintenance, there's restocking, there's checking all the lights on the maintenance on the runways, there's maintenance inside the airport terminals. And our body is just like that too. We go through detoxification processes. We clear out dead neurons in the brain. We clear out rubbish. Basically, we take out the trash and we regenerate our cells. And if we're not able to get good quality sleep, we're not going to do that. And if we can't regenerate our cells, how can we recover our muscles and the broken down muscle tissues from running? And it's no wonder then what happens is, even then, neurological actual processes go down. People have shown that 4 or 5 hours sleep is actually like similar, if not worse, than drink driving. When you look at the effects of it,
Mm-hmm.
which is absolutely crazy. And I can't quote the actual amounts of drink driving that people like discovered the actual neurological dysfunction of the equivalent to sleep, but it was being slightly over the limit. It wasn't much. And to imagine that people are getting up at 5 a.m. to go drive,
Yep.
sleep deprived, you wouldn't go and drive when you had some drink. I like to think that people wouldn't go and drive once they've had some drink, but that's frowned upon. And driving while sleep deprived isn't, which is worrying. Then also we look at sleep with regards to hormones, and there's a study that shows that, bearing in mind, after 30, testosterone in guys goes down around 1% every year on average. And if you sleep for 6 hours or less for around 2 weeks, our testosterone lowers around 10 to 15%,
Wow, I didn't know that.
which is crazy.
That
So
is staggering.
I can't remember the amount it takes to bring it back up again, but it's worrying when we think about that correlation with that and sleep. What's that going to do with our recovery? Well, actually, we're going to recover less. Now, neurologically, if we can't function effectively in our brain and there's inflammation there, we suffer from brain fog, we're forgetful, how are we going to be able to have good running technique?
Yeah.
And then we start getting more fatigued. And we always see, when we see runners, you can see when they're really fatigued. When we're bending over a little bit more, rather than being upright or getting into the good stride. How is
Yep.
that going to be effective? Then we get more injury prone.
Bingo. And that's what we talk about all the time, Ollie, is terms of our group is going back to the health, the nutrition, the strength training, all that stuff ties together, because what are we most want to avoid as we get older? We're masters runners. So anybody over the age of 40 is technically what's called a masters runner,
Yep.
right? Nobody wants to get injured, because guess what? When you're injured, like I've got an injury right now to my hand. It's not, but it's affecting me for going running, because what will happen is all of the circulation is going to go in there. It's going to impede my ability to recover. But that's all tied together. You have to be able to recover through sleep.
Mm-hmm. And if we don't get that recovery, now, why are we running in the first place? We're not getting paid for it necessarily. So we're doing it for well-being. And a lot of times we're doing it for mental well-being as well. I go to the gym, I cycle, I run, and I feel good when I'm doing it. And I miss it if I have time off. And if I'm injured, I'm not going to be able to have that well-being. So mental health potentially goes down. Are we really going to get the same fulfillment? I journal, I meditate, and then I do my cardio stuff pretty much every morning. And not run every morning, but some form of movement every morning.
That's the
If I
critical
can't
thing
do that
that we
because I'm
talk
injured,
about. Yeah.
yeah, and that's where we don't understand that all these things make a difference. So this is where sometimes structure with training, yes, we make sure we don't get too many miles in and we can recover from them. We don't have too many kind of trash miles, making sure we're able to recover. But sometimes we have to have that strength to realize, actually, my body battery on my Garmin is low, or my heart rate variability is low. So I am going to run, but I'm actually going to have this mental ability to go very, very easy. Maybe only stay in zone 2 and do a little bit less, which is very, very hard. The amount of times when I was programming running, and I know you'll resonate with this as well because you'll have no doubt done it. I've done it, so I hold my hands up to it. The amount of time I was programming endurance athletes, not just on nutrition, but actually training programs. And they would say, on a recovery run, 3 miles was in there. Oh, I felt good, so I done 5. And then I'm like, the next week, like, oh, that long run felt really hard. Like, yeah, because you went 2-3 miles over on your runs, and that was actually another 10% of your runs for that week. So it's having that. If we are sleep deprived, our actual ability to refrain from these things goes down. Just like when people are tired, it's harder to stick to a diet.
Boy, it's funny you're mentioning all this stuff because Pat and I have talked about this exact same theme. So it's so refreshing to hear similar or almost identical messages coming from you halfway around the world from where we're at here. Of course, we have some viewers in Europe as well, but I love it because it's just the way it works, right? You and I are both in good shape. I'm a little bit older, but still, it's all relative because health is such a focus of our daily lives, and that's what we want to keep doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, can you discuss any lifestyle changes or habits that will improve your sleep or your brain health? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
I think one big thing is we briefly mentioned it when we were actually just getting ready for this call, is talking about caffeine and how many people have caffeine just throughout the day. Looking at the half-life of caffeine is anywhere between like 5 or 10 hours, rough, or 5 to 12 hours, depending on if you're a fast metabolizer or slow metabolizer. Most places will say 5 to 6 hours, but there are studies that show it's got a longer half-life than we think. So if you're having an Americano at midday and you're trying to sleep at 10 o'clock, you've got half of that in your system. Would you drink half of a coffee just before going to bed and expect to sleep? Now, some people will go through this sleep and not have restorative levels of sleep. So looking at caffeine, but also when we wake up. Now, I get it. A lot of people will do their workouts when they wake up. It's the time when they do it. And running first thing is such an amazing buzz when everyone else is still asleep and you're running the streets, especially in the city center. It's awesome when we do that. But if you're having the caffeine, and we have these things called adenosine receptors. Now, adenosine binds onto these receptors and allows us to start waking up. And basically, it keeps us feeling tired and we have to burn through those. Now, when caffeine's in there, it stops the adenosine from binding to these receptors. So like we've got these receptors and adenosine should bind on and then it wears off. But because caffeine's binded onto them, this adenosine is still going around the system. So when that caffeine wears off, we then feel tired. And that could be a few hours afterwards. So we get this mid-morning or mid-afternoon energy dip, which then we need more caffeine to get through it. And maybe you're then one person that works out in the evening and you do your run in the evening. And we need a caffeine kick an hour or two before it. So then we can't sleep. So it's very much to me that if I need caffeine to do a workout, pre-workout or something like that, then I'm not going to be recovered enough necessarily to do the full workout that I wanted. And okay, I get it sometimes if people are jet lagged using that, and I have caffeine throughout the day, but I don't have it within the first 90 minutes of waking up. Because that's where that adenosine should be doing its work and allow us to wake up. And if we don't also, like things like that, sleep as well, using the snooze button massively impacts our sleep for later that evening. And the reason being is that when we wake up, we should have a cortisol response, being the stress hormone. And we should have this, we wake up and can't see it because we're on the side of the screen. We wake up and it goes up. Then it comes down after like an hour or so, 2 hours. It starts coming down, and it should stay down and flatten out for the rest of the day. Now, if we can imagine, say our alarm goes off at 6, our body's like, okay, now I need to raise my cortisol. But you've set that snooze for like 10, 15 minutes. Suddenly it's like, I'm trying to raise it, but I can't because we keep hitting the snooze button. We're going to mess with our normal regulation. So that's a detrimental thing as well. And that's going to impact our recovery. So sleep is just super powerful. I've done in fact, yesterday I'd done the actual group live for, I'll talk about the group program that we said about. I'd done that on sleep and went on for like half an hour talking about different bits of sleep. And the lady afterwards, like one of the ladies just said, that was really, really powerful. I did not know half the things that we said. And I just think if you have not got good sleep, you have not got good health.
Wow.
Period.
Yeah, it seems such common sense, but we all, because our lives, no matter where we are in the world, is so busy these days, right? We're information overload, et cetera. And, then if we're not eating appropriately with the right nutrition, it just compounds that. So speaking of that, can you talk about any specific foods or even supplements that you have found to be particularly beneficial for your clients that'll help you with better sleep quality and which is going to lead to better brain focus?
Well, actually looking at nutrition, first thing is just balancing your blood glucose levels. So we have this high carbohydrate diet and then we have low protein a lot of times. We need carbohydrates to get the fuel in there. Yes, for brain function, like there are studies that show ketogenic dieting can be very, very beneficial. But again, if you're going to be going over certain thresholds in your training, then we're going to need glycogen stores. So we want to have good levels of protein, good levels of fats, and have the carbohydrates around your training if you're training hard enough to do that. Some people aren't. And some people can very, very good adapted to be able to use stored glycogen as a result. But making sure, like one of the things I say is that we never have carbohydrates on their own. We always have proteins and fats with them. So if you're having that morning smoothie, then having loads of fruit with them is just going to be detrimental, potentially, or loads of fruit without the protein, that is. I personally say to people that have proteins and fats for breakfast and save the carbs till later if you're training later. I'll have like oats and things after my training session, some blueberries or strawberries, and then I'll have like some chicken and veg, that sort of thing. But other things you can do is making sure you have loads of greens. So when I go to a restaurant, people like it's the waiting staff look at me funny and they're like, okay, like, I don't want the fries. I'll have green salad, no dressing, and another green salad and 2 sides of green veg. They're like, what? Yeah, like I want to be full. And I don't want to just be on a glucose roller coaster. And a lot of people just set their days up for that. It's not to say never have them because you need these to help recovery to a degree as well, but get good, healthy carbohydrates in there. I've got a glucose hack guide, that a PDF where it's like 7 glucose hacks that is in the group as well, in the mastermind as well. And there's been some good feedback with that. Like, always dress your carbs. Like if you are going to have carbohydrates, have some olive oil on them or some mayonnaise dressing, so you've got some fats in there. And like, so dress your carbs. Like never have your carbs naked. And then even signs of like, I call it do the sugar shuffle. There's a study, and I think it was in Japan or China, and pretty certain it was Japan. They showed that even 100 steps after you finish your meal will help you with digestion and blood glucose regulation. So going for, like, I was always taught, like, wait for your food to go down before you do exercise, but just go, like, if you are at a restaurant, park far enough away in the parking lot so you can actually do like 100 steps to get to your car.
Such a simple change, right? This is what Pat and I talk about all the time, is like just minor changes to our nutrition and our lifestyle can lead to significant impacts.
Yeah. I would say about like the sexy stuff doesn't get the results. The boring stuff gets you sexy. And we look at this, like so many people, especially coming in the entrepreneurial world, so many people have ADHD and dopamine deficiencies nowadays. And believe me, like I'd done a live on Monday about my ADHD and autism journey, and I got such great feedback. I was worried about posting it because a lot of my friends and family don't know about it that much. But I was glad I posted it. But talking about having the actual dopamine release, basically 80% of your results are going to come from just the foundations, maybe even 85%. That's going to come from good hydration, good sleep, good basic nutrition, not even following a specific diet, just whole food diets, whole food nutrition, and moving. That's going to get the best results. Then you're going to get 10%, maybe 15% on maybe I do intermittent fasting, maybe I go ketogenic, adding certain supplements in and so on. Then the 5%, actually, I'm going to go and do cold water dips, ice baths. I'm going to add these nootropics in. I'm going to do all the stuff that the biohacks that people shout about on Facebook that are sexy. That's going to get 5% of the results. And people will spend a lot of money on them. I'm a functional medicine practitioner. And one of the things in functional medicine is that people prescribe protocols all the time. I want someone to be doing the foundations before we build a protocol. And my actual one-to-one clients, I don't make money off supplements. I give them to them at cost price, because if I make money off those supplements, I could be biased in what I'm prescribing. But it is kind of a running joke in the functional medicine communities that, we just give people some supplements to have. But those supplements aren't going to do their work if we're not built the foundations. I think that's super, super powerful to think about that. There's no magic pill for a solid foundation. What happens if you build that skyscraper and you haven't got foundations to have that amount of height on there? It falls down.
Yeah, you're going to have that's you would be shocked how much similarities that we've talked about as well, because, and again, we share with our viewers stuff that works for us. Everybody's got to test that because everybody is different. You're different than I'm different, right? But there's those foundational things which are common, right? That if we practice those. So that you just had some great stuff, some really gold there. I hope you guys maybe go back and re-listen to that, because he talked about just those minor changes. Another key word you mentioned there was water, hydration with water. I talk about that every week. As Americans, we are way underhydrated, but as around the world, it's pretty much the same, but especially Americans. So, wow.
Yeah. Getting good quality water as well.
Yeah, exactly. Critical. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So can you share along those lines any specific tips or strategies with creating that natural or the ideal sleep environment, which is that's a big deal. People overlook that.
Take technology out of your room. So I would say no caffeine within about, depending on how you metabolize, but at least 6-7 hours before you want to go to bed.
Really? Wow. That's longer than I realized.
I have no caffeine after 3. And remember that decaf coffee has caffeine in it.
Really?
It has up to 50-60% caffeine.
Okay.
So just having decaf may not be enough. So I would have the tea I had in here was rooibos tea or herbal teas. They're very, very good. So looking at that, food and meal timing can make a difference, because we don't want to have a large meal before bed, because it's going to be processing, and your body isn't going to want to detoxify and do all these sorts of things if it's processing food. So looking at meal times and experiment. But we have this 3-2-1 rule. So 3 hours before, no food. 2 hours before, no work. 1 hour before, no tech. So 3, 2, 1, sleep. And I think the tech thing is the biggest thing I see with people. And I hear clients say, I can't keep my phone out of my bedroom because it's my alarm clock, or buy an alarm clock. They're $10.
Yeah.
And there's an alarm clock I recommend, you're probably getting cheaper than that, a thing called a Lumi lamp. Wakes you up over it brightens up over 30 minutes. So actually getting that, it just is a sensation of sunrise. And it's so awesome to wake up for that. Another thing is light exposure, as we said, for that screen. In the morning, we're not that sensitive to light. So we need bright light. So if there's not light outside, get a sad lamp, a light box, but get yourself in the sunlight quickly, within the first 15-20 minutes. Get that bright light. In the evening, we're super sensitive to light. So just getting the screen of your phone and looking at that can definitely make your eyes think that, or make your brain think that it's actually daylight, and our eyes are actually part of our brain. It's the only part of our brain which is technically outside of our body. So that is actually exposing direct light to our brain. So switch off the lights. And the big one, and I done one of those clickbait videos where it's like, cleaning your teeth is making you unhealthy. People are like, what? Like, actually, how many times do we then, people hit the pillow and they're wide awake? Well, they've just cleaned their teeth. Now, literally, look at the bathroom lights. You thick on the bathroom lights, and they're usually really bright. Then they've got a mirror there as well. And luckily, we live opposite a care home, and if we keep our blinds open, like the lights from there are plenty. So we don't turn on our bathroom lights through the night. But having lights above you is actually shown to be worse than just having, like, I've got little Himalayan rock salt lamps down there, and like lamps at like waist height. So there's that. You can do blue light blocking glasses, but I think the big things is 3 hours before.
Yeah.
Using
I wanted to share that. Yeah.
3 hours before, no food. You can have a tiny snack if you want. Like if you've got poor blood glucose management, sometimes I say to people, have a couple of slices of ham before bed, or small peanut butter, like a spoonful of peanut butter, just to see if that changes when you wake up. But that's all done on, like, I do more in-depth testing with clients and look at blood tests if they need them, and like see all inflammatory markers, and like really get into the recovery and have some awesome results with that. But if we want to keep it simple, 3-2-1 rule goes in.
I love that. We're going to use that again, Ollie, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
And man, I'll tell you, we could we are really just scratching the surface. And there's so much more I want to talk about, but at the same time, I do want to respect, our viewers, because we try to keep these to around 30 minutes. That's been our goal each week. And so we're coming close to that. So one of the things that Ollie and I talked about separately, as well, as he's got a program which is phenomenal. And I asked him if he could do something special for our group, and he's agreed to do that. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, Ollie? I'm going to put on the bottom of the screen. If you go to this URL, runtips.us/OJ, that's runtips.us/OJ, that's going to take you to Ollie's sleep program. Why don't you talk a little bit about that for a minute?
That is the revitalization blueprint. And basically with that, it's a call every 2 weeks, and they're on Tuesdays, and it's in UK time, in the evening UK time. So it'll be afternoon US, but they are recorded as well. Now, what happens is that things like people suffering from brain fog, insomnia, problems with sleep, low energy, afternoon energy dips, like the things that we've spoken about, maybe it's like getting acid reflux, bloat, like getting runner's belly and that sort of thing. Like, what do we need to do? It's not directly aimed at runners. It's aimed at stressed out individuals.
That's okay, because it's all relative,
which is most
right?
of the world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyone that, as we say, are the weekend warriors, are the people that aren't taking this as a living, really, really are going to benefit. Now, we've got topics like, looking at the topic list that we've got, we've already been through a 4-pillar method, which is how we can actually eat healthy anywhere, how we sleep. Next time we're going through the perfect diet to achieve goals, then understanding what's really going on with your body, optimizing hormones, blood glucose management. There's so much we're going on about. And the thing is that the community will decide if we need a different topic in there for the next week. So if we say, Ollie, just can we talk about, I don't know, injury prone, I don't know, I'm just throwing something out there. And there's people want that, then okay, well, we'll do that, or I'll record a live on that and put it in the group. Now, all calls are recorded, and then we have a Q&A afterwards. And any questions get answered in comments in the mastermind and all this sort of stuff. There's also 2 years worth of a video library in there. So actual 2 years of different content that I've recorded, all sectioned up. So if you want sleep, there's like 10 different sleep videos.
Wow.
And they all say roughly the same thing, 3-2-1 method. Focus on those foundations, but different tips of how we actually really improve that. So that's all in there. And you've got your code.
And the code, yeah, just so you guys know, is if you use code RIMP for Running Is My Passport, Robert, I guess I for Igloo, Mary Paul, RIMP, as you guys know, he's going to offer, what's the discount you're offering, Ollie?
There's a 10% off that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That is very gracious of you to do that. So again, guys, if you go to runtips.us/OJ, that'll take you to his programs, and I put on the bottom of the screen there. If you just use code RAMP, you'll get an extra 10% off. Oh man, Ollie, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for your
No
time today.
worries.
Which I got to ask you, would you come back again? Because we could do
Absolutely.
part 2 and part 3 on this one.
Yeah, I literally, I was talking to someone today that on a podcast, and they said like health I could talk about for 3-4 hours without any preparation, because it is just what I do and what I live and embody. So love to talk about that.
Okay, we're going to do that, and we'll get some good feedback here. We haven't had time to read the chat or anything, but we'll get that. But regardless, I know that our viewers are going to want you to come back, so that would be awesome. So we'll schedule that for some time, maybe this spring or summer. We'll figure something out. But yeah, that's awesome, Ollie.
Many times as we need. Like there's plenty of things to talk about. You could do hormones, we could do gut health, like thyroid hormones. Like there's loads.
That is so awesome. All right, well, have a great Saturday, everybody. And Ollie, thank you once again.
My pleasure.